Hey, thanks for having me.
Torsten Schrank, thank you so much for agreeing on this interview. And thank you so much for taking part on my 12 sculpture challenge. And not just taking part of it, you're the first one, you're January, so I'm starting with you. So you're a character designer, an award-winning character designer for the movie Klaus from Netflix. I think your position is a key position in a feature film because you're between the writing side and the visual side. Can you explain, maybe for those who don't know exactly what your job is, when do you come in the creation of a feature animated film, and for how long do you stay?
That's a really interesting question because actually, I think the character designer is one of the first artists that really had the chance to start visualizing the script, or not even the script. It's just maybe a treatment or just a punchline of an idea of a director or a producer, right? So usually I got contacted pretty early in the progress. In the
Okay.
process of developing a project. In the beginning, it might be just being a character concept artist. It's not yet the character designer because I'm really splitting those two terms because they have different approaches maybe and different assignments. So for the character concept artist, I would say what I'm doing, okay, I'm getting the idea, let it be a script already or just a treatment for a pitch.
Mhm.
And I'm just starting visualizing those characters.
Mhm.
They're just at the moment they just exist as a written word. And now I'm trying to, of course, address all the ideas and the wishes and the needs that the director has.
Mhm.
And and as a in that concept phase, that is, I think, the most creative phase
Yeah.
of developing those characters because there are yet no strings attached,
Mhm.
right? In terms of is that production able to do that? Do we have the budget for that? This is just really the pure artistic side of it, the
Mhm.
pure creative side of it. Okay, let's visualize that character. How does that character look?
Mhm.
Right? So and then I think at that moment the sky's the limit. So you should be really, really creative,
Yeah.
being inspired and taking reference from whatever it takes to get that character on paper. Right.
Mhm.
Um, so many times I get as well booked just for that phase for okay, we have a pitch, we
Mhm.
need a few sketches. Um, let's do that, right? And
Okay.
that might be a really short time, maybe
Mhm.
just a couple of weeks or whatever.
Okay.
And but when it comes already more into production, so that it be then already part of a pre-production, of course, there I would have more time, and then somehow that being or conceptualizing those ideas, they shift more towards already when those designs get more and more approved, then it starts to be more the assignment of a character designer. That
Okay.
means the character designer got already more information about the needs of the production, about budget, about the pipeline. So in the end, me as a designer, I have then to take that concept maybe that the character that the director or the producer liked. I
Mhm.
have to take that and make it production ready so that everybody is happy and that there won't be too many problems within the production. So that means to prepare the character, make it make it more production friendly, maybe depending on the budget, Of course, if I have a lower budget, of course, then I need to know that, and I already incorporate that into the design so that
Mhm.
maybe the character is more simple, or the design, or we don't have a lot of cloth simulation and hair simulation or
Mhm.
whatever. So all this comes into play for me as a designer, preparing all the model sheets, preparing everything. If it is a CGI production, preparing then everything for the riggers and model department and so on and so on. So everything what is character related goes through my hands.
Yeah.
And that, because you said how long I'm on the production, that differs.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just maybe till the modeling starts, and maybe then I'm still um, taking a look at the models, doing my drawovers.
Mhm.
And then when the animation starts, I'm already out, right?
Okay.
In the case of Klaus, I was from the very first day of production till the very end of production,
How long? How
the
long was
very
that?
last day of production, because this was a thing that took almost 3 years, and I was 3 years on the production, starting conceptualizing characters, doing then the final designs, then being more or less there available for all the animators if
Mhm.
they have some drawing issues, if they want to get drawovers. I have done that till the very end where marketing started, and I've done then as well marketing promotion material, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's also because this one with the was traditional animation. Maybe in CG you have there's less need of you until the end. I don't know. Is it different
Well,
from
yeah,
that?
of course, it as well then depends on the budget of the production.
Of course.
If the budget is that big that they can keep me throughout even afterwards,
Hmm.
then of course rigging starts, and rigging is a big part as well
Yes.
for design.
Hmm.
Because especially then you see, okay, how does this, or how is this design, how does it work in 3D, in three dimension,
Yeah.
and how does it look when it is moving? And I think a good rig can plus a design.
Hmm.
A bad rig, maybe you have a really nice design, but maybe the rig is not that good.
Hmm.
And then in the end,
Doesn't
it
work.
doesn't matter if the design is nice or not. It
Hmm.
doesn't look nice in the movement.
Yeah.
So, and it is all about movement. The design should never stand in front of the animation, right?
Yeah.
It should never be just to be, okay, this is here a nice eye candy design. And no, it's not all about that, right?
Hmm.
The creating a character is not only doing the character design, it is a big chunk is the animation then later, because there the character gets, or then they are breathing life into that, right? As a designer, you just can prepare everything so much that the animation or that the animators get inspired just
Hmm.
by the design, and just maybe by the first posing that you've done, or by the facial expression sheets that you prepared for them. Maybe they get inspired by that, and then they plus that even, right? And really, really finesse certain character habits, and then in the end, you got that's a really team effort to create those characters. Design
Of
is
course.
a very first part, a really essential part, because somehow you're the casting director, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And and then comes the acting on top of it.
Hmm.
Then you have even the voice. That is another thing, a third part to that.
Hmm.
And all these parts are forming then the actual character. And this is really nice. And of course, if I have the opportunity, if they're giving me the opportunities to stay longer on the production, even maybe then later being a consultant on the animation in
Yeah.
terms of do some drawovers, maybe find a graphic solution for certain poses.
Mhm.
And of course, then I will take that, right? But that is all depends on the needs of the production and on the budget, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
So, have you ever worked with a character sculptor who take your design and put it in a sculpture, or do you usually work with people who model it in 3D?
No, usually I'm working with people that are modelers and that are modeling in 3D. Yeah. Yeah.
I know that you did some sculpture yourself to help you see your character in volumes, right?
Exactly. I'm doing that sometimes just
Hmm.
for myself, just to figure out if that design could work, right? So this is far from professional of being professional, a professional sculptor, but it is always good to figure it out because I'm not really familiar with any of those modeling softwares.
Hmm.
So for me, it is easier to figure it out in clay. And so therefore, I'm just doing that sometimes. Right? And that even helps me then, if I'm just figuring out the main shapes, maybe this helps me even then just to draw the character in different angles.
Of course. Mm.
And yeah, but I'm not doing that much, unfortunately. Yeah. And you are the first one that now we are teaming up on that nice project. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Yeah,
Great.
great.
Me too. Um, so drawing the way you do, I can see you've done it your whole life. So I was wondering if you come from an artistic family. Do your parents or your sibling also do art, or were you just
No.
like the weird one
No, I'm
drawing
I'm
all
the
the time?
weirdo. Yeah, no, I'm somehow the no. Well, let's say when I was little, I'm the youngest one. My siblings, my sisters, they are older.
Hmm.
So and of course we were drawing together when we were little. And I really admired always their drawing skills. They were drawing really good. They drew well, fantastic from my point of view back then as a little boy. But now when I see still their drawings from back then, I thought, well, they had something, right? So, but they went then different paths.
Hmm.
And and me, after all, I somehow lost that track for some time as well. I always loved to draw as a kid. That was part, I think, as every kid is
Yeah.
doing it. Then I lost that through my teenage years somehow, and then I picked it up in my late teenage years again, um, because watching Beauty and the Beast in the cinema after a long time not watching any animated feature film, and that was a kind of a eye opener to me.
Okay.
Um, how drawing, how a drawing can live and can really transmit emotions and personality and acting and all those things.
Hmm.
I was really blown away, and from that point on, I just carried through. Um, so you see, I started quite late with that in the late teenager years, in the late years of high school. Yeah,
And so that's when you thought of it as a career, or
yeah, yeah,
later? Yeah.
definitely, yeah, of
And so
course. And
what?
then I started sneaking around, finding out, okay, is this a possible career, or is that something, yeah, I have to learn that on my own,
Mhm.
and try to do my best, and maybe I will find something to work.
Mhm.
But then I found out that there's a university here in Berlin or next to Berlin in Potsdam. And so I started there. They had a nice traditional animation program. And I was lucky enough, so I didn't have to move somewhere else and I could start there. Yeah.
Great. And about that, I know you're from Germany and you live in Berlin with your family, but you also worked for a big studio across the globe. You work remotely, but do you sometimes have to be on site to work with the team? Do you have to
No,
travel?
really, really rare.
Okay.
In those days when I was working with Sergio Pablos animation in Madrid, I went there maybe every 2 or 3 months there and stood there maybe a week or 2 weeks at the studio,
Okay.
and then I went back and was continuing working remotely. Most of my work is remotely. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Except after when I was graduating from university, after that I moved to Spain for almost 3 years. I was living there and I was working in-house there.
Mhm.
So, and then after that, I came back to Berlin, right? And started my somehow freelance career. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was lucky enough that I could always work remotely.
Mhm.
Nowadays, of course, after the pandemic, this is not such a big thing anymore.
Yeah.
Before it was,
Mhm.
before there were many, many studios that they were not eager to send out stuff.
Yeah.
And but nowadays it's just a common thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
One more question. What is your favorite part of your job right now?
My favorite part. This is really hard to say because I somehow like every little step
That's a
of
good thing.
the design work.
Hmm.
Um, I love having just a blank white sheet of paper in front of me and not knowing yet, okay, where to go. Um, and then discovering things on the way. I love that moment when somehow you have that impression, yeah, there it is. There's the character. I found
Mm.
it, right?
Mm.
Or not even me, only we found it together in the team, right?
Yeah, of
Because there's always coming feedback from the production designer, from the director, from the producer,
course.
even from the script writers.
Hmm.
And so, and I think, and then later on, then really massaging that design, diving into it a bit more, um, being somehow that character for a couple of weeks, right?
Hmm.
Um, trying to crawl into that skin and analyzing it a bit more. I really love that. And then somehow, especially when you're working on a CG production, it is you're designing the character twice.
Yeah,
So once on paper and once then the translation into 3D.
yeah.
Then you somehow start again, of course, not from zero, but you have to do a lot of drawovers just to get the model right
Hmm.
or as close as possible to what was approved in 2D on paper.
Yeah.
And then, uh, but this is as well really a really nice and rewarding progress, right? Um, and then and I think the most magical moment is still when I see those characters first time animated.
Mm. Yeah,
This is something wow. Yeah.
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 They're
I
alive.
can't get rid of that rush, of that
Mm.
sugar rush in that
Yeah,
moment, right? To
yeah,
see that for the first time, to press play and to see, wow, oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it is like wow, sometimes like ooh. It's like but most of the time it's like wow, yeah, it's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you love your job, and we can see that in what you do.
Yeah, no, I can say that I'm really happy with that job.
Yeah.
And of course it is up there are ups and downs, of course, right? It is always like a high when you are on the production and a low when you have nothing to
Mm.
do, right? And you're looking for a new gig.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think every artist that is working somehow in that industry has to get along with. And I think that's something as well for people that are going to start out and trying to get a start somewhere. I think that that's as well a big learning curve.
Thank you so much for answering my questions, and thank you for giving us so many beautiful drawings. I love your work and love seeing your all the fun that comes from it. It's amazing. Thank you.
No, I have to thank you for for letting me being part of that project, and I can't really wait to see how that will turn out. Right. And
Great.
thanks for featuring my work and yeah, and having those nice inspiring conversations. Right.
Oh, thank you so much.
For
Thank
sure.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.